The stage lights bathed the set in a bright glow, the band played their jazzy theme, and Stephen Colbert leaned into his desk with that trademark grin. The grin he always wore when he thought he was the smartest man in the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, stretching the words with his usual theatrical flair, "please welcome the legendary Denzel Washington." The audience roared. Cheers, whistles, and applause thundered through the studio as the Hollywood titan emerged from the wings. Denzel walked with the same calm, deliberate stride that had defined him for decades. No exaggerated waves, no forced smiles, just presence. He was dressed sharp. Dark, tailored suit, crisp shirt, shoes that clicked against the polished stage floor with every step. Colbert stood to greet him. The handshake was firm, too firm. Denzel's grip steady, Colbert's a touch too eager. They exchanged a few polite words off mic, but Colbert's grin widened the way it always did when he thought he had something clever to say. Denzel, by contrast, kept his face composed, a faint smile tugging at his lips, his eyes steady and unreadable. They sat. The applause died down. The room shifted from celebration to anticipation. The cameras zoomed in close. Colbert leaned forward first, smirking. "Denzel Washington, the man who can make a whole theater go quiet with just one stare. I have to admit, even sitting across from you, I feel like I should confess something." The audience laughed. Colbert spread his hands, playing up the joke. "You're intimidating. Don't you ever get tired of scaring people half to death?" The laughter rolled again, but it was nervous, because Denzel wasn't laughing. He smiled faintly, leaned back in his chair, and after a long pause, said in his low, commanding tone, "Only if they have something to be scared about." The audience gasped, then laughed hesitantly. Colbert blinked, his smirk faltering for a fraction of a second before snapping back. But the shift was there. The energy had changed. The game was no longer his. Colbert shuffled his cards, tapping them on the desk like a nervous tick. "Now come on, Denzel, you've played cops, lawyers, gangsters, kings. I mean, people cross the street just seeing your movie posters. Don't you ever think maybe I should play something a little lighter? Like, I don't know, a goofy dad in a rom-com?" The audience laughed. Colbert leaned back smugly, sipping his water, waiting for the punchline to land. Denzel tilted his head slightly, his lips curling into the faintest of smiles, but his eyes stayed locked on Colbert. "So you want me to stop doing what I do best? Just to make you feel comfortable?" The room froze, then burst into applause. Whistles and cheers erupted. Colbert chuckled awkwardly, tugging at his tie. No, that's not what I mean, Denzel. I'm just saying, you've built this incredible career being intense. Maybe the world wants to see your softer side." Denzel leaned forward, resting his forearms on his knees, his gaze steady, his voice sharper now. "I've been showing the world every side of me for 40 years. Maybe you just weren't paying attention." The crowd erupted again, louder, bolder. Colbert adjusted his glasses, his smirk faltering once more. He tried to laugh it off. "Well, fair point. But still, you've got to admit, you've made a living out of being serious. Don't you ever want to loosen up?" Denzel's smile widened just a fraction, but his voice cut sharp. "I've loosened up plenty. The question is, why do you feel the need to tell me what roles I should or shouldn't play?" Gasps, loud applause. The audience shifted from laughter to energy that pulsed through the room like electricity. Some fans shouted, "That's right," while others whistled. Colbert tried to wave it down with a chuckle, but the nerves were visible now. "Hey, I'm not telling you what to do, Denzel. You've won Oscars, you've got nothing left to prove. I'm just saying, maybe give us a laugh once in a while." Denzel leaned back, crossing his arms, his stare unrelenting. "I give people plenty to laugh about. But here's the difference, Stephen. When I make them laugh, they're laughing with me, not at me." The audience exploded. Gasps, then wild cheers, clapping, whistles. Colbert's face flushed red. He shuffled his cards again, stammering slightly. "Oh, okay, that's fair. Point taken." But the crowd wasn't letting it go. They roared louder, feeding off Denzel's presence, clapping in rhythm, chanting his name under their breath. The shift was undeniable. Colbert, usually the one in control, was now cornered on his own stage. He tried one more time. "Look, I'm just saying, you've played so many roles, so many iconic characters. Maybe the next step is to surprise us all." Denzel leaned forward again, his eyes narrowing, his voice calm but cutting. "Surprise you? I've been surprising audiences my entire career. The real surprise is that you didn't notice." The crowd went wild. Thunderous applause shook the rafters. Colbert leaned back in his chair, forcing a laugh that came out thin and awkward. His smirk was still there, but it was hollow now. The cameras zoomed in. Denzel's face was calm, unbothered, sharp. Colbert's grin looked painted on. The balance of power had shifted, and everyone in the room knew it. The energy in the room had changed. You could feel it even through the cameras. The cheers hadn't died down. The applause still echoed in the rafters, and Denzel Washington sat there, calm and unflinching, while Stephen Colbert shuffled his cards like a nervous schoolboy trying to remember his lines. Colbert cleared his throat, forcing out a laugh. "Well, that was a pretty strong response, Denzel. You've clearly still got the fire." He turned to the audience, gesturing broadly. "See, folks, he scares me and entertains you at the same time." The crowd laughed politely, but it wasn't the full, easy laughter Colbert normally commanded. It was thinner, edged with awkwardness, as if everyone knew the host was losing ground. Denzel sat back, tilting his head, his eyes narrowing. "Scares you?" he said slowly, his voice low, steady, carrying weight. "I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to tell the truth. If the truth scares you, that's on you!" The audience erupted, clapping, cheering, whistles cutting through the air. Colbert's forced grin slipped, his eyes flicking nervously toward the producers off camera before snapping back. He tried again, chuckling. Okay, but come on. You've got to admit, you've got this reputation. People see you walk into a room, they straighten up. You've built that. You own that." Denzel leaned forward, his voice firmer. "I built my career on discipline, respect, and work. If that makes people sit up straight, then maybe they should have been sitting up all along." The crowd gasped, then roared in approval. Colbert laughed awkwardly, tugging at his collar. Okay. Point taken. Don't mess with Denzel. I'll remember that. But the audience wasn't laughing at the joke. They were cheering for Denzel, and Colbert knew it. He shuffled his papers again, searching for footing. All right. Let's switch gears. You've won Oscars, you've directed films, you've done it all. Do you ever feel like maybe you take yourself a little too seriously? I mean, lighten up, man. The audience laughed weakly. Colbert smirked, thinking he'd found an opening. But Denzel's response came swift and sharp. "Too seriously?" he repeated, his tone cutting through the laughter. "You call it serious. I call it respecting the work. That's the difference between us. I don't take shortcuts. I don't turn everything into a joke." The studio gasped again. Colbert's smile faltered, his hands frozen on his cards. The band, usually quick with a musical sting to cover tension, stayed dead silent. Denzel leaned back, crossing his arms, his gaze steady. You sit there night after night making fun of everybody else. But when somebody looks you in the eye and calls you out, you laugh it off. That's not courage, Stephen. That's hiding. The audience exploded. Cheers rattled the walls. Some people stood, clapping wildly, others whistled, shouting Denzel's name. The roar lasted a full 10 seconds before dying down. And when it did, Colbert was still frozen in his seat, his smirk looking more like a grimace. "Wow," Colbert finally muttered, his voice thinner, higher. That's one way to put it." He forced a chuckle, gesturing to the crowd. "You see what he did there? He flipped it on me. Classic." But nobody was laughing. They were still buzzing, talking, clapping, waiting for Denzel's next move. Colbert's grip on the room was slipping through his fingers, and he knew it. He leaned forward, dropping his cards, trying to meet Denzel head-on. "All right, Denzel, let me ask you this. Do you ever worry that people are intimidated by you? That maybe they can't separate you from your characters?" Denzel didn't flinch. He leaned forward too, his voice calm, measured. "People confuse the roles with the man. That's not my problem. That's theirs. You know what the real issue is? People get too comfortable thinking they can laugh at everything. Not everything's a joke." The audience clapped again. Colbert waved his hands, laughing nervously. "Well, hey, comedy's what I do. I make jokes about everything. That's my job. And yours is to act. We each have our lane." Denzel tilted his head, his voice low but booming across the studio. "Stay in your lane then. Don't tell me how to drive mine." The crowd erupted, louder than ever. Screams, applause, whistles. The sound was deafening. Colbert sat back, blinking rapidly, his face flushed. He opened his mouth to reply, but the noise drowned him out. When the cheers finally died down, he leaned forward again, his smirk brittle. Okay. But seriously, come on, Denzel. Don't you think you're being a little heavy for late night?" "This is supposed to be fun." Denzel didn't blink. Fun isn't the same thing as foolish. I can have fun without being disrespectful. Can you? The audience gasped, then howled, clapping wildly. Colbert's hands trembled slightly as he reached for his mug of water, sipping quickly. The camera zoomed in tight on his face, the smirk twitching, his eyes darting nervously. He tried to fight back. Hey, don't turn this around on me. I've been doing this for years. People tune in because they want to laugh, not because they want to hear a lecture. Denzel leaned closer, his stare piercing. Then maybe they're tuning in for the wrong reasons. The audience exploded again, clapping, stomping their feet, some chanting his name.
Denzel!
Denzel! The chant grew louder, filling the studio with a rhythm Colbert couldn't control. Colbert raised his hands, trying to wave them down. All right, enough. This isn't your show, Denzel. This is mine. Denzel sat back, calm, collected, his voice smooth but sharp. Then start acting like a host instead of a heckler. The studio went wild. Cheers shaking the walls, gasps, whistles, some audience members standing on their feet. Colbert's face was red now, his smirk gone completely. He looked rattled, cornered, outmatched. The escalation had peaked. Colbert's control was gone. The stage belonged to Denzel. The air inside the studio felt heavy now. The applause, the chants, the shouts of "Denzel! Denzel!" had left the room vibrating. Even those watching at home could sense it. Colbert was not in control anymore. He gripped his mug of water like a lifeline, sipping slowly to buy time. His cards lay abandoned on the desk. His smirk was gone. He glanced to the audience, forcing a laugh, then leaned forward toward Denzel. "All right," Colbert said, his voice thinner than usual. "You've made your point. You're serious, we get it. But hey, it's late night. People want to laugh. Lighten up for me, just once." The audience gave a few nervous chuckles, but all eyes were on Denzel. He leaned forward, his voice even, measured but cutting like glass. "Lighten up for you, Stephen? I've spent my life giving people the best of me. You don't get to decide when I laugh and when I don't. That's not respect. That's control." The crowd roared, clapping wildly, whistles echoing. Colbert shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his glasses slipping slightly down his nose. He pushed them back up with a trembling hand, trying to keep composure. He chuckled weakly, but it was hollow. "Come on, Denzel. Don't make me the bad guy here. You've played enough of those roles already." The audience gasped audibly. It was too much. Too sharp. Too desperate. Denzel froze for a split second. Then his head tilted slowly, his eyes narrowing, his smile vanishing. He leaned forward, his voice low, calm, and devastatingly clear. "You see, Stephen, that's the problem with you. You hide behind sarcasm. You take cheap shots and call it comedy. But when someone looks you in the eye and calls you out, you fold." The studio erupted. Cheers, claps, whistles, some gasping so loudly it echoed. The audience surged to its feet, shouting and clapping, the noise drowning out Colbert's nervous laughter. Colbert tried to wave it off, his face red, his smirk trembling. Hey, easy. Don't turn the crowd against me. I'm just joking." But Denzel wasn't done. He leaned closer, his voice dropping, every word landing like a hammer. "The difference between us, Stephen? I don't have to joke to tell the truth." The audience roared louder than ever, their cheers shaking the rafters. People were on their feet, stomping, chanting his name again. "Denzel! Denzel! Denzel!" Colbert slammed his hand on the desk, his voice cracking. "All right, enough." But the crowd didn't stop. They chanted louder, their voices pounding through the studio like drums. Colbert shouted again, "This is my show!" But his words were drowned out by the roar. And then Denzel leaned back, calm, collected, his voice booming over the chaos without ever shouting. Then start acting like a host, not a clown. The eruption was volcanic. The crowd screamed, whistled, clapped until their hands were red. Some pointed at Colbert, others at Denzel, but the message was clear. The moment was no longer his. The breaking point had come. The studio was pandemonium. The cameras shook as operators scrambled to keep the shots steady. The band sat frozen, their instruments untouched, eyes darting nervously toward the producers waving frantically off stage. Stephen Colbert sat back in his chair, his face red, his smirk gone completely. He tried to speak, his voice trembling. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's calm down. Let's get back to the show." But the crowd drowned him out. They were too loud, too energized, chanting Denzel's name, clapping rhythmically, some booing Colbert outright. Denzel didn't move. He sat calm, still, his arms folded, his gaze steady. The contrast was devastating. Colbert twitched nervously, fiddling with his cards, his mug, his pen, anything to keep his hands from shaking. Finally, in a last-ditch effort, Colbert leaned forward, forcing a smirk. "Well, Denzel, I guess you've won this round. Happy now?" Denzel tilted his head, his voice low, final. "I wasn't playing." The studio erupted again, louder than before. The roar of the crowd shook the cameras, their voices deafening. Some were standing on their seats, others clapping furiously, the chant of "Denzel! Denzel!" pounding through the air. Colbert's face went pale. He shuffled his cards again, his hands trembling visibly. He tried to speak, but no words came. He looked into the camera, forcing a weak smile, but his eyes betrayed him. The producers waved desperately. The cameramen zoomed wide, capturing the chaos. Colbert rattled, pale, gripping his desk, while Denzel sat calm, unbothered, the crowd chanting his name like an anthem. And then, the feed cut. No outro, no jokes, no smooth transition, just a sharp, abrupt cut to black. The final image burned into millions of screens. Denzel Washington sitting calm and unshakable, while Stephen Colbert sat defeated at his own desk, humiliated on his own stage.